If you started a podcast and you're wondering, how can you embed that podcast onto your blog? Because you want to make sure that people are coming back to your home base, which is your blog or your website, in order to listen to your podcast. So I want to make it easy for you. And I'm going to show you a few ways, depending upon the platform that you're using and also the podcasting host that you're using. Now, if you want to find out all about my recommended podcasting hosts, you can go to the video that I have called Podcast Hosting for 2018. And I'll be sure to add a card for that video over here. So, the first one that I want to show you is for someone who has a self-hosted WordPress blog and they're using one of my recommended blog podcast hosts, and that's Libsyn. So in order for me to do that, I'm going to head over to my daughter's podcast and her website. And my daughter's name is Nicole Purvey. Hey, Nikki. And her podcast is Better Than Success. And on the Better Than Success website, it just so happens that she interviewed me on the last episode, which was last weekend. And if you scroll down a bit, you'll see the embedded player. Now, what my daughter does in her podcast, she hosts with Libsyn. And as I mentioned, this is a self-hosted WordPress blog. She uses the default image. Now, my daughter knows that most of her listeners are listening either on iTunes or they're listening through the Google Play or Stitcher. So she's not that concerned about the look of the widget on her site, but she does want it to have it there because she's got people coming to her site all the time because she's got a real estate league, and that's the Better Than Success Real Estate League. She's also the author of a book, which is the Anti-Hustle book. And she's just doing a phenomenal job with this Anti-Hustle book. And so people are coming over here because she also has events. For example, we have the Philadelphia Real Estate Week event is coming up. And then she's got a ton of more events coming up. So she's got a lot of traffic to this site. But I wanted to show you that you can embed just the simple podcast player. I believe they call it the wizard player from Libsyn if you're hosting your show with Libsyn. And let me just go back over here so you can see what it looks like. Now, if you want, on the Libsyn dashboard, you can change the dimensions of this player. And because I know that most folks that are using WordPress, self-hosted WordPress, and they have a podcast, those are not the folks that are really struggling with this issue. The folks that are really struggling with this issue of embedding the podcast on their blog are folks who are using other platforms. There's also tons of plugins that you can use if you have a self-hosted WordPress. So we're not going to cover that. We're going to cover, like I said, I want to address my friends who are using platforms like Anchor, and they're trying to figure out how they can embed that on their blog. So I'm going to go to the first example of a WordPress.com blog. Right, let me get that up before I go to the screen share. All right. And I see some folks have come into the audience. And so I just want to say hi to you guys. And let me just go through a couple more examples and then I'll bring you guys up on screen. Okay. So with this example here. Let's make sure I'm sharing the right screen. I've always had a WordPress.com blog. In fact, the very first blog that I ever started blogging on was Ileane.wordpress.com. And so I played around with a few other blogs that I never actually published. And this one that we're looking at is called the podcast blog. And, I never launched the blog, but it's great because now I can use this for demo. And what WordPress.com does, they have a very slick interface. So this is a preview of these embedded podcast episodes. Now, in this instance, we're not talking about Libsyn because we already talked about that, right? I want to show off Spreaker, which is really one of my favorite hosts. And this question also came up from Andy. Andy does a live interview show, and she can use Spreaker to do her live interviews via audio. Okay, so she wants to also be able to embed that replay player onto her blog. So here's an example. Now, what I need to do in these examples here is just tweak the image sizes, but I didn't want to spend that much time on this because you guys know you can easily, rearrange the position of the images. And what we want to do is get down to the nuts and bolts of how to actually do this embed. All right, because it was not easy for me to find how to enter this code. Now, the one that you see on the top is the Spreaker episode widget. So one of the things about Spreaker is that people can come into the community and they can like your broadcast, or they can leave comments, and of course they can share it. So here, I like how it has this waveform down at the bottom. And even though I just embedded the episode here, let me take a sip. You can see that people could also scroll down to see previous episodes. So that's a very handy feature. Now, in the next one is the show widget. So no matter what, the most current episode is always going to be the one on top. And in this particular episode, I actually did not have show art for this episode. So this is just my channel logo. Okay. So before we go to the next example, let me just show you how to do it, because we're going to go into the back end. Let's go to the edit. All right. So we're editing this. Now, what I found out from Spreaker, I was actually digging around because I was trying to help Andy answer her question. And I found that there is a code, and you won't find it when you're in the back end of Spreaker. I actually found this in a blog post as an answer to a question. So with this particular code, you're going to have the bracket and embed, I'm going to put all this stuff in the description of this video. But I wanted you guys to see here where you can just embed that code. And in this case, the link that I used was the link for the episode. And in this case, the link that I use is the link for my show. Okay, so that's the difference between those two. So now I'm going to show you how to find that, how to actually grab that code on Spreaker. So let's go over to, before I do that, hang on one second. And I think I see that I have some live viewers here, but I don't see anything in the chat room. So you know what I think I did? I think I have the wrong chat room open. And so hopefully I'll be able to mute this tab quick enough when I open it. Yep, there you go. I got it muted fast enough. So now let me see if I can grab, because I'm going to assume that somebody said hi to me. No. Oh, yeah, there we go. All right, here we go. I had the wrong chat box open earlier. So let me pop this one out. Because I love to bring you guys up on screen. Let me close the other. I started to go live in a different platform. And so I didn't have the right chat box open. So now I can close that. Okay. All right. So let me go over here and say hi to the folks that are here. Tish Rosales, hey. We're here for the YouTube church. Yes, we are going to touch on YouTube. And then there's Brian from Ring Lawn Care. Hey, Brian and Andrew. Thank you. And Fox Gamemore is here. I like that spelling of Gamemore. You shared the link in the patron group. Thank you so much. And yes, it's super cute. Saturday. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. I was a little delayed, Andrew, actually, because I was positioning the light. And, we'll talk about the light a little later because I'm still not exactly happy with the placement of it. And because right now it's snowing here. And so there's not much daylight happening. So we're still working that out. It's all right, though. So now let me show you the back end of the Spreaker dashboard. And I see Oliver Vincenti is here. Hi, Oliver. Okay, let's go back to screen share. All right, so this is the Spreaker website, guys. They always put a little message up there. They want you to do some kind of upgrading or something. So this is what my podcast that's over on Spreaker. This is what it looks like. This is kind of a hodgepodge of different episodes. This is not my main podcast that's over in iTunes. Okay, this is one that I like the Spreaker platform because I can go live on audio. So here I would want to go into my dashboard, right? And what they call the Spreaker CMS or, content management system. All right. So here's what I would need to do. If I was going to embed this whole show, right? Wow. Created 6 years ago. So, I've been a fan of Spreaker for a long time. Then I would grab these embed codes. And I love one thing that Spreaker does, and the reason why I really love them so much is because they're the only ones that I know. And if you guys find someone else who does this, you let me know. They're the only ones that I know that allow you to take their logo off of that player. So you see the Spreaker logo over here? All I have to do is uncheck that box and that logo is gone. Okay. Now, of course, if I want to show my likes and my comments and my shares, if I had any here, then also I can go with a dark theme instead of the light theme. Okay. Now, it just all depends upon the background of, your blog and what your website looks like. Now, like, for example, this would be fabulous on my daughter's site. See, she doesn't use Spreaker. She's using Libsyn. But if you remember her site that I showed you a minute ago, it's all yellow and black. Those are her colors. Let's see if we go back here. So this would be perfect for her, if I could convince her to try Spreaker. But I'd have to do it all for her. So I don't have time for all that. So here's what you would grab if you had a blogger blog, okay, or a WordPress self-hosted blog, you would grab this long code here, all right? Or this one, depending upon what kind of, where you want it positioned. This one would be copy and paste this code just before the body tag. It just depends upon how your site is. But let's just say it was a regular WordPress self-hosted, then you would use this one at the top. All right. And it'd give you a choice between the iframe and Spreaker actually has a plugin. So if you were going to use it on a self-hosted blog, you may as well just get the plugin because the plugin may have some other fancy features that I'm not even aware of because I don't use that plugin. Okay. But the iframe embed is always, always, always my favorite. And if we get time, I'll show you why I like that one. Okay, so, and then also we have the option. Remember, I showed you how you could go dark. You could also use that photo as the background. Okay, if I wanted to do that, you know, I need to resize my images to fit this player. And it tells you the sizes. We recommend uploading show artwork of at least 1400 by 1400. We support JPEG, PNG, and GIF and TIFF at a minimum of 400 by 400 and a maximum of 4 megabytes. So that is absolutely fabulous to know that. And then you can change the size of the player, but the maximum height is 600. Let's see what it looks like at 600. So yeah, definitely don't want to use that artwork. Okay. With that, when you don't use the artwork, then the maximum height changes to 200 pixels instead of the 600. Hey, Mood Fazane, how are you? I'm the best teacher ever. Oh, thank you. Okay, so I like Spreaker. You know, my 4 recommendations are Libsyn, Blueberry, Spreaker, and Podbean. Focus on Spreaker. And even though SoundCloud is not one of my favorites, that is the next one that I want to show you because, you know, I know that you guys are going to use what you want to use, right? And I know that a lot of you guys are using SoundCloud. So let's face it, you don't always take my advice. And I want you to be able to know how to do it if you decide that you're going to use SoundCloud. Okay? Is that fair? I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. Okay, so here we go. Let's go over to, these are ones that I favorited, but we're going to go over to my tracks. You know, I don't even like the terminology to use it because it's not really a track. It's a podcast, but that's okay. I'm not going to pick on SoundCloud since I'm on their website right now. All right. So here's how you would grab that embed code. Okay. Hey, Larry. Hey. All right. So this is the different options that you have here, the different colors that you can use with it. And, you know, I wouldn't get too fancy with the colors because each one of your, and let's see how this play button, no, let me scroll down a little bit. I'm sorry, guys. See how this play button is changing color? You know, I don't know that really makes that much difference. I guess it really just all depends upon the colors of your website. Let's go with the green mood here. That might make a little bit difference. Okay, and you can do the same things. Now, let's go back to the example of the WordPress.com blog. Before I do that, let me just come back on cam, break the monotony of all that little stuff there that you're looking at in the back end of SoundCloud. Okay, so just a real quick recap, because especially since I saw that Larry just came in. I'm showing a WordPress.com blog and how you can show off your podcast on WordPress.com. Okay. All right. So now let's go back to the back end of the blog here. Okay. SoundCloud has a code very similar to the Spreaker, only it's a little bit longer, but it starts off with that bracket here. So this is me showing it to you on the back end. Now let's do a preview so you would see how it looks. And you see the YouTube one there too. I probably put them out of order. I probably should have put the YouTube one at the bottom. So we're going to come back to YouTube later. But there's the SoundCloud. And once again, you see how my image isn't positioned in there properly. So if I'm going to do this, I have to keep that in mind, the position of the image that's going to show up there. Okay. Another thing I want you to notice, remember I said Spreaker's the only one that lets you take their branding off. So see, SoundCloud not only has their branding there, but they also have this cookie policy thing. And I think that's because SoundCloud may not be, their headquarters may not be based in the US. I think that may have something to do with that cookie policy. Or just because of their user base. And, you know, eventually Spreaker may have to have it as well because of what's going on with, you know, all the different notifications that we have to give people when they're being tracked on our website. So anywho, this is what the SoundCloud. Now, a lot of people prefer this player. And that's why a lot of folks are using SoundCloud. I honestly, as you can tell, because I keep talking about them, I like the way the Spreaker player looks better. Okay, you can see this particular piece of art, you can't really see it as much, but you can see it a little bit more in this art here. You know, it's just 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. Oops, I started playing my podcast. All right, now the reason why I have YouTube here, I can't hold out any longer. First, I want to let you know that when you're embedding a YouTube video on any WordPress blog, all you have to do is enter the link. So we're on the visual side now, but let's just go back to the HTML side. Only thing I did was put the link in there. Now, all of you webmasters already know that, but somebody who's just getting into podcasting who may be watching this doesn't realize any WordPress blog that's self-hosted WordPress or WordPress.com, all you have to do for a YouTube video is to paste the link to the video and it will render on WordPress. That's just something that WordPress decided that they would, you know, that, and Twitter is the same way. If you have a link from Twitter, it will automatically render. And there's 2 or 3 other items that automatically render on WordPress. So, all right, I'll come back on cam now. And I also want to get this link over in the Facebook, in my group here for my patrons, if anybody wants to come on cam. So hang on for a second, guys. Let me get Facebook up. All right. Thanks for your patience there. I know that this is the reason why I came on this route instead of using the Ecamm Live today, is because, you know, Ecamm Live, you can bring people on, but remember that's in beta, and also you need Skype, and I just didn't feel like being bothered with all that today. So anyway, I'm going back over into the group text and pasting that link if anyone wants to join me on cam. Okay. And all right, most people are, I see a few comments over there, folks saying that they're going to come in later on. So, you know, WordPress.com is really something that I recommend for a beginning blogger, because eventually you're probably going to want to upgrade to a self-hosted WordPress. And although they do have an import from Blogger, it's not foolproof. And to upgrade from a WordPress.com to a self-hosted WordPress, so much easier. It's like a cakewalk. You know, you literally just say, okay, embed it. You know, it's a few clicks and it will bring in, you can bring the blog posts in individually, which is something that I did. And this has been like this for a long time, because even when I started Basic Blog Tips, I bought like 10 blog posts over from the Ileane blog on WordPress.com. And they came over without a hitch. Maybe I had to resize an image or something like that, but that's just because when you go from one theme to another, you always have to resize images and things like that. I take that stuff into consideration. So is anybody coming to join me in the room? I see some comments over here, and Carla has joined us in the chat. Great to see you, Carla. And okay, Spotify. Oh, speaking of podcasting, my podcast is now on Spotify. Congratulations, Larry. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you took the move and already got your thing listed on Spotify. Congrats.
Thank you.
So, did it actually show up? Like if I go over to Spotify now and type in Larry Snow, it'll come up?
Yeah, it should. Business of Security.
Okay, great. Because I know when Rob Walsh was made the announcement the other day, he said it takes 2 weeks for it to actually show up.
It took 2 days.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. Spotify is really, your mic is kind of hot, Larry. Spotify is really, they're getting serious about podcasting. About time. Oh, you got a hashtag, Larry Superstar. You see that?
Yeah, I see it. Is that better?
Yes. Let's see. Carla is finding out for the first time about the Spotify thing. Carla, you need to host with Libsyn in order. If you're hosting your podcast with Libsyn, you can get into Spotify.
Yeah, they make it super easy.
Oh no, it's still hot. It's still loud. I wonder why. I know you probably were just recording videos or something.
It doesn't feel loud to me. So.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's just on my end. So, I'm not sure why Spotify decided to start with Libsyn. Like, okay, this is just to give you guys a little bit of a history really quickly. Over a year ago, actually it was in 2015, Spotify decided that they were going to let select podcasts over into their directory. And then about 2-3 months ago, people started posting. I finally got in after a year. I finally got in. And so that, like I said, that was 2-3 months ago. And then just this past weekend, we got the announcement from the folks at Libsyn. Rob Walsh, who's the VP of Podcast Relations, said that Libsyn Podcast, all you have to do is set up a destination for Spotify. Now, I am not going to show you guys how to do that today because I want to keep this video simpler for someone who is just starting and may not even be using Libsyn yet. And then we can hold that for another, live stream for those who are using Libsyn.
Yeah, I was just messing around with Libsyn. I was just poking around because I've had them. That's how I do my podcasts. I upload them to Libsyn as a download only. I've never went through the process of having a podcast page and all that stuff. And I was just doing the same thing over and over again. And I just thought, well, let me just go explore what else Libsyn has. And since I'm getting back into the podcasting thing, I was like, okay, let me check this out. And there were all these destinations. You can do iHeartRadio, you can do Spotify, Google Play Music, and there were like a couple other options. And so I've submitted it to iHeartRadio to see if I get in there, and I submitted it to TuneIn to see if I get there. But the TuneIn is not through Libsyn.
Hey, Andrew, welcome.
Thank you.
Had you ever thought about doing a podcast, Andrew?
Not really. It's like I have a voice for silent movies and a face for radio, so I just don't do that type of stuff.
Oh, people would love your content either way. You're just such a helpful person.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I try.
Yeah.
Oh, and don't worry about moving your lights. I do it every 45 minutes, whether it needs to be done or not.
Yeah, I still don't have it dialed in. In fact, it was Terry Lee. He left a comment that he said that it was too close. And so I said, well, I'll use the battery and then that way I can back it up. But I guess I was thinking that I would have this light coming towards me, which would be from my window, but it's snowing out, so there's not much sun.
That's the problem. If you've got any daylight at all coming in, then the light is constantly changing, so you don't know how to set these lights up. Now, if you were in a room with no windows, where that was your only light source, you could do it once and forget it. But with the day, especially if you're on all day, because I've got like a 45-degree angle, because I'm in a corner room with windows on two sides. So in the morning, I've got it coming this way, and in the evening, I've got it coming this way. And so I'm constantly up, doing
Hey, Barb T, how are you? Barb, are you on mute?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, now I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, let me see if I can get my camera. Hang on a second. This is an experiment.
Oh, you're experimenting with something? Oh, there you go.
Yeah. I am coming in from my back studio, which is not really set up right now. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, you're fine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tech issues are bizarre right now.
Yeah.
This lighting sucks in here. I didn't have time because the other system I was all set to go and there was no sound.
Wow.
And so I just ran back here, so the lighting's not set up right. But ew, yuck! Look like a ghost coming in.
So Barb, do you have a podcast?
I haven't set it up yet, and that's why. I mean, theoretically, that's what I wanted to do, and why I was drawn to Anchor, because it was just so easy from the phone, like we talked about. And so then a health issue got in the way, and I just said, well, it's just got to wait. I can't, it's all about time and place. And I'm watching what's going on in the mainstream of things. And I know that Facebook is working, really pushing on an audio, because they got it finally, that more of us, even though the video is there, we end up listening. We don't watch. And the thing about listening to someone speaking is that it doesn't take nearly as much bandwidth. So for the foreign countries, particularly, it makes it much easier for them to communicate with us. And so that being said, it's like, you saw that they rolled out the music and the sound clips and stuff. And I know that things are going on behind the scenes, that they're, it's concept wise, it's a push button approach, so that you don't have to be a technophobe to, the whole thing is going to be very plug and play, very easy to do. So I thought, well, where I am in life and what's going on, I think that the most that I can do is the Anchor thing. And I'm just hovering over the holidays, just deciding whether just to stick with Facebook, quite frankly. And because Facebook is on our phone, they're going all mobile. And if they are going to highlight us, and whether we're audio or video, they're highlighting live, and to be there in the moment. So if they're doing that, it puts a new twist on things.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Now, I'm not hearing you, Ileane. Why would I not be hearing you?
Oh,
darn.
Everybody else can hear me, right?
Let me.
Oh, Larry, I know you can hear me because you. And I know Andrew can hear me.
So it didn't recognize.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear Larry? Nope.
1, 2, 3.
You can't. So you got audio working only in one way. Oh, Barb.
Whoops.
So okay. I'm glad Barb brought up Anchor, because there's something I want to say about Anchor. With Anchor, you can't currently embed on a WordPress.com blog. So that's a limitation because Anchor has the iframe code, and WordPress.com has granted, like I mentioned earlier, YouTube. They can, all you have to do is paste the link. Also, Twitter, all you have to do is paste the link. And there's a couple of other things. I can't think of them off the top of my head. But Anchor doesn't have that kind of weight yet with WordPress. And I don't know that they're ever going to get it. Now, if you have a self-hosted WordPress, no problem. You just grab that embed code and you can embed your episodes. Now, there's something else that I need to clarify because this is really important. And I know for a newbie podcaster, this is very confusing. And for us seasoned podcasters, we're kind of like, well, yeah, what made you think you could do that? And it kind of, is like, why can't you? But one thing you need to know, you cannot embed your iTunes podcast in your website. You just can't do it. If you're hosting with a Libsyn or a Blueberry or a Spreaker, you can embed that player. Yes, but actually go to the iTunes page and look for an embed code. You're not going to find it because you can't do that. And I know that's a little confusing for folks because you go to other people's sites and you listen to their podcasts, but they're actually getting a player widget from their host, not from Apple iTunes. I don't know if Apple's ever going to change that, but probably not. What do you think, Larry?
I was testing out because I still have my old WordPress.com website.
Uh-huh.
And I just was about to paste in the iframe
From
Anchor.
Oh yeah. I played with it already a few times just to make sure, because that's a question that I was actually getting. I'm getting all my friends at Anchor. They want to know how to embed their podcast, but they don't have Blogger and they don't have self-hosted WordPress. They mostly have.
Yeah, that's funny because if you but when you preview it, it doesn't show up. All it shows is a link.
Yeah.
That's disappointing.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, there's only a few things that you can embed that way. Now, if they had a short code, see what I was showing with Spreaker, and I think you missed that part, Larry. Spreaker has a short code. SoundCloud has a short code. So they've done some development with the folks at WordPress.com to get that short code. And it's actually very hard to find the short code for Spreaker. It's not straightforward. I literally had to dig into the comments of a blog post in order to find